Ermager monk nerfs. So, figured I'd make a quick video to kind of talk a little bit about the monk nerfs before people freak out about what exactly this is going to mean for some Mistweavers going forward into the 5.1 build, which we still don't have an actual release date on. But I figured I'd mention it anyways. Now, this is really kind of the first major nerfs that Blizzard has actually implemented for the Mistweaver spec so far as 5.1 is concerned. We've seen a couple of changes so far, including things such as the crit change to where crit now increases or gives you a chance equal to your crit chance to generate additional mana T stacks, and a couple of other things similar to that, as well as, healing sphere, LOL healing sphere changes, and a couple of other things. So let's look at a little bit of the nerfs, and I'll try and explain exactly what is happening. Now, this is the general monk and then talents nerfs, but before I go into that, I want to look at some of the other changes first, and it'll make a little bit more sense if you actually look at it in this specific order rather than going, oh my god, She Burst nerf, why would they do that, blah blah blah, we never use our tier 30 talents anyways. So this should hopefully make a little bit more sense for it. Oh, there we go. So, specifically going to be looking at some of the major changes. Things like the mana changes really aren't that big of a deal. The mastery thing, whatever. Mastery is mastery. I'm already reforging out of that anyways. So let's look at the Mistweaver changes here. Specifically the Renewing Mist change. So now if you actually read the tooltip, and forgive me, the MMO Champion tooltips aren't properly updated yet as far as what exactly the finalized values are. But you're going to notice that they nerfed the output. Instead of it being 3235 plus 16% of spell power, email, it's now 2266 plus 10.7% of spell power. So there's a slight nerf to the actual output initially there, but now here's this other change. It heals every 2 seconds for 18 seconds, as opposed to every 3 seconds for 18 seconds. So there is going to be a nerf to each individual Renewing Mist tick, but it's going to tick, 1 second faster, so you're going to get, however, it's, faster, and there's like an extra tick in there or something. I don't know, I haven't actually figured out the actual number of that. So, if you actually continue to read on, it says, each time Renewing Mist heals, it also travels to the closest nearby injured party or raid member, so that's a tooltip clarification. They haven't actually changed how this functions, that is just a tooltip clarification. Within 20 yards, instead of it being 3 times, it's now going to do it every 2 times, and then a slight mana change as well. So you are going to get 1 fewer Renewing Mist jump than you were getting before. Now, really, this is kind of where the nerf, people really kind of go, Ermager, big nerf, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, it is a pretty significant nerf, but this really only affects 25 man. And I've mentioned this before, the reason why monk balancing is so finicky right now is because in 10 man, you can only have 10 Renewing Mists out. Like, you're going to hit that cap regardless of this change in 10 man. But in 25 man, you don't have a cap of 10 Renewing Mists. That was a very, very early on beta balancing where they just basically said, you can only ever have 10 Renewing Mist out, that's it, you're done. But they later on changed it to where you can have as many out as you want as long as you manage your Thunder Focus T properly, and I think the most that I've ever seen was like 21. My average is something about 16, 17-ish. So there's a huge scaling issue where you're essentially doubling your Renewing Mists for those burst periods. Well, a little under that in 25 man that you're not seeing in 10 man. So there's this huge scaling problem where you just have too many Renewing Mists out, which makes Uplift just do way too much healing. So by removing 1 jump per application of Renewing Mists, it's going to kind of bring the scaling disparity between 10 and 25 back a lot more. So yeah, we are going to do less healing. We're going to do a lot less burst healing, but it was kind of a needed nerf. Like, look at Elegon parses, for example, where monks are just, way above and beyond what everybody else is able to do because of how Renewing Mist is scaling in 25 man. So, yeah, it sucks, it's a nerf, but the biggest thing to focus on here isn't the actual change to how much healing it's doing, but the fact that now it's ticking every 2 seconds instead of 3, so that should kind of counterbalance that out. And then you're getting 1 fewer jump per Renewing Mist. So you're going to have less Renewing Mist out in 25 man, which, again, that was kind of a needed change. Now, the other changes, some of these are going to tie into it. You know, there's the mana increase, which is going to be balanced by the crit chance to generate more mana tea based on your crit chance or whatever that was. So that's, you know, that's whatever. An interesting one, though, is going to be the Stance of the Wise Serpent change. I believe they just clarified the haste value of it, because they said it was 150% instead of it being 50%, because you're really only gaining 50% more. So your haste is going to be increased from items by 50% while in Stance of the Wise Serpent, which, you know, you're never not in that stance. Which is going to make your haste a little bit more valuable in the fact that you're probably going to be able to hit the next Renewing Mist breakpoint pretty easily. Now, I haven't actually looked at the value of it to try and, you know, figure out what in my gear and how close I would get and all that good jazz, but you should be able to get to the next Renewing Mist breakpoint. So they're trying to make all of your secondary stats a little bit more in line. Mastery has been mastery. I'm reforging out of that. Crit I'm going full into, and then haste, you know, 1345, like, you're reforging out of all of the haste on all of your pieces, and for most people, depending on your gearing, you end up having too much haste anyways. So haste is going to become a little bit more valuable because you're going to be able to hit the next breakpoint, hopefully. Mastery is going to stay right about the same. We'll get into that in a second. And then crit obviously is going to increase, which I think is kind of funny that they're increasing the value of crit when I'm already reforging into crit and out of mastery. So not really sure how I feel about that. Now, if we go back to the earlier notes, these specific ones, this is when things get to make a little bit more sense. Since Renewing Mist jumps were nerfed, that means your uplift healing is going to be less. Now, if you've watched my stream and you've heard me talk about it, the breakpoint in my current gear for where Chi Burst is going to be better than uplift was right about 10 Renewing Mists or less. If there was fewer than, you know, 9 Renewing Mists, I believe 10 was about even. If there was 9 Renewing Mists or fewer out at that time, Chi Burst was going to do more healing. So if they didn't nerf Chi Burst as a result, then you would just never uplift, because you're going to have fewer uplifts out, and, you know, you would still uplift every now and again, but only when you were above that specific breakpoint, which is going to be a lot harder to get because you have one less jump per application of Renewing Mists, initial application even. So the tier 30 talent nerfs were warranted. I mean, the Chi Wave nerf is kind of silly because we don't ever go with that. The Zen Sphere, I think there was a Zen Sphere one on there. I'm not seeing it, so maybe not. But Zen Sphere was kind of useless anyway. So Chi Burst needed the nerf to compensate for the uplift change as well. So this might... I'm going to have to look at the values again. It's going to screw with the breakpoint as to when Chi Burst and uplift are even, and then when you would Chi Burst over uplift and things like that based on how many active Renewing Mists are. But I'll have more information as we get towards 5.1, whenever that may be. So again, yeah, they are nerfing us. Yes, they should be more in line. Really what it's going to come down to is you're probably, instead of on 25 man wanting to run 2 or 3 monks, you're probably only going to want to run with 1, maybe 2. It really depends on what the actual implication of this is, you know, how negatively it affects our throughput. It is a pretty sizable nerf, but again, it's needed. Now, honestly, I feel like monks could be brought down a little bit further beyond this point if we had a real, you know, tank cooldown, raid cooldown, but we don't currently. So we'll see where this really puts us in line with the other healers. You know, if Shaman are doing comparable numbers, then, you know, Shaman are going to be better because they've got raid utility, things like that. Overall, I wouldn't over-stress the fact that they're nerfing multiple spells at once. It's really just to try and keep the balance of, you know, uplift versus the tier 30 talents kind of even, because if you just nerfed the Renewing Mists that you can have active, you know, by 1 per fresh Renewing Mist application, then Chi Burst again would pull out ahead by quite a bit. Now, some of these other changes, I'll have to relook at it, but the Mastery change, Gift of the Serpent change, they doubled the values at one point, and then I think this is just reverting that specific change that they did to Mastery. So not really that big of a deal. That should stay about the same. Healing Sphere looks to be the same thing as well. So it doesn't really seem to be that big of a deal. A couple of other changes, really just mana cost. The mana costs were increased by... I want to say it's like 10% or something across the board. I'm probably completely wrong, but yeah, mana cost increase. But again, you know, we've got really good mana right now. If you play the class properly, then you really don't have a mana problem. which is kind of funny that they gave us the crit thing. I was talking about this the other day. One of the previous builds made it so that you could generate double the mana tea stacks equal to your crit chance. So if you've got a 20% chance to crit on your heals, and you've got a 20% chance when you generate one stack of mana tea to generate an additional one instead. Well, not instead, but as well. So it's kind of counterbalancing where they're increasing the mana cost, but then they're giving us potential more regen. So that really, don't overstress about that. That really shouldn't affect much of anything, so I'm not honestly too worried about that. And okay, there it was. There is a Zen Sphere nerf. Yeah, 337 to 450. But again, you know, that kind of falls in line at the same time. Now, the Ascension change, this was already in, so I'm not sure what the tooltip, like, I think it just said mana by 15 instead of 15%. Again, mana problems have more mana. Yay. I don't know, that's kind of a weird change. So I'll talk a little bit about that later on. I'm debating if I want to do kind of like a blog to talk about the changes, like on affinity.com, actually doing a blog and posting about it. If you want me to do that, post in the comment section, and I'll think about doing that if people find interest in that. As far as streaming is concerned, should be back to normal streaming as soon as Grand Empress is dead. Again, starting Tuesday's heroic modes, I'm going to be doing the usual, 5 guilds total on 25 men have killed it, so I'm going to, loop a kill video of it, things of that nature. So make sure to check out for that. I'm not sure if I'm going to stream before Tuesday. We'll kind of see what ratings looking like and where I'm kind of sitting. But that's it for now. Just wanted to go over that. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, again, you can always contact me via Facebook or Twitter. I'll provide links to that in the info section. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.